Well, I would like to welcome everybody to the next lesson. And this lesson is called How to Handle Arguments, right? And today we live in a world that is built upon arguments. Right? We call them opinions, right? A certain way of doing things that opposes every other way of doing things, right? Our selected way of doing things. Governments themselves form sides which argue against each other. With almost all aspects of this world, we see that competition is favored over cooperation. So arguments are things that happen on a daily basis, and we can see from some of the terrible things on the news that arguments can escalate into violence, wars, and many things that are causing some damage to this planet. So moving from the state of argument is an important step in forming good thinking, right? And good thinking forms in good meditation. So now that we are sitting in contentment regularly and have found our place of stillness, our ledge or wherever we sit to build for ourselves a place of relaxation and contentment, it is interesting to listen to the energies that oppose us while in the state of meditation, right? So while in the state of contentment, we are often approached by energies that are not content in the present moment. The Buddha called these ones Mara the demon and his followers. These were the ones that were not content to sit in contentment in the present moment. Not enough. Reality was not enough for them. They needed things as well, right? But there are no demons in our story, right? Here we believe that all things, all beings, are conscious love on an experience, right? Here we believe that we are interconnected in that experience, much like a tree that splits into limbs and branches carries that same personality with it into different perspectives, right? So we have the perspective or the personality at the trunk before the branches have extended. When those branches extend up, will those branches have the same personality as the trunk? Of course they will, right? And if those branches became self-aware, just like humans have become self-aware, would those branches not begin to argue amongst themselves for location and sunshine and rain and leaves and that sort of thing? So this is what we're talking about, right? A single personality seen through different perspectives beginning to argue. Our conscious universe has acted very much the same, right? It is a single consciousness that has extended itself into many experiences. After all things around us are part of the conscious universe. So all things are an extension of that universe. So that personality of the universe would follow itself into all things, right? And because some aspects of those things have developed their own perspective, these personalities begin to argue with each other. A single being, fighting now, right? Now that conscious universe expressing itself in multiple, simultaneous experiences is arguing with itself, right? Like limbs fighting on a tree, the same tree. This is because we hold too narrow of a perspective to remember the life we had before our experience as a human. Or in the tree sense, the limb has too narrow a perspective to remember its life before it was a limb, when it was the trunk. And for that reason, we and the tree, we forget that in a truer way, we are one being. All limbs are united at the trunk, right? One thing. And the trunk still exists now, right? So if we were to move our perspective from the perspective of an arguing limb to a centralized trunk, then our perspective would be more accurate. So it's all about perspective and moving from an unhealthy spot to a healthy one. And to continue the tree analogy, health comes from seeing that we are all the same tree. And in that state of unity, choosing one side over another is silliness, right? A complete waste of the tree's energy. All limbs growing from the same tree. And if those limbs move their perspective to the trunk, like we said before, they would see clearly that arguing was simply unproductive, an unproductive use of the tree's energy. So competition becomes something unhealthy in favor of cooperation, right? This is the ending of the self as a limb amongst other limbs and the beginning of the self as a tree, right? And in this way, through meditation, we begin to identify less with the human experience and more with our journey as the conscious universe, an expression of that universe, right? With the caring and understanding that that universe would have. So it is a balancing of our narrow perspective, a widening of it, right? We move from thinking that we are only humans amongst many humans to realizing that we are all simply the same personality on multiple journeys, right? And for that reason, we begin to care for each other. And so perspective moves, right, to a place where there is no argument in healthy thinking. There is no argument in healthy thinking, right? We are no longer choosing sides. Now on a single state again, right? Always sitting still or content. Because choosing sides is a sign that our perspective is too small, right? To choose one side over the other is simply unhealthy thinking. Like that tree, right? Two limbs arguing with each other. If one limb wins and the other limb loses, how does that affect the tree? It does not change anything, right? Other than it has lost energy in argument, right? But if one limb helps another limb, how does that affect the tree? We have a healthier tree, right? And it comes from limbs understanding that they are simply an extension of a single consciousness, right? The Atman mind, as the Hindus believe. So, contentment is when arguments do not form. It is not having the right argument. Health is cooperation, right? So what does health look like to the tree? Well, limbs in a healthy tree would contribute to the tree by caring for whatever was within its reach or its power, right? So it cared for itself and its local concerns well, right? And if all the other limbs and leaves and tree and parts of the tree did the same thing, the tree would be the picture of health, wouldn't it? All of its energy used to grow. None of it used in argument, right? No argument. No competition. So these are things that lessen the amount of energy we have for growth, not only within and in the meditative mind, but also on the outside, right? For whatever answer works on the inside, the answer is the same on the outside to bring peacefulness to a conflicted society, right? In our lives and in our meditation practice, this means watching arguments without any real concern for the answer, right? After all, to choose one side over the other means we have forgotten our true perspective and nothing more. And this will not lead to growth, right? Instead, when we watch an argument form, we should begin to ask ourselves, how did this relationship get so weak that we can only communicate through argument? and begin like the branch that is healthy, that would begin to concern itself with just the things around it and the health of those things. That we would begin to concern and use our energy to be concerned about the relationships around us and to water those relationships so that they were so powerful and that our communication was so close that arguments would no longer form, right? That is true health. And again, this works in the meditative mind, right? When we're listening to parts of our energy argue with us and with the outer world, right? Same thing. It's really no difference. So when expressed inwardly, this is a healthy mind, right? This way of thinking. And when expressed outwardly, this is a healthy world, right? So that is a lesson on how to deal with arguments, right? We deal with arguments by remembering that there are no two sides, right? There is one consciousness expressing itself from two perspectives, and any sort of fighting or arguing or damage that can be done between the two of them only brings less power and less strength to the present moment. So again, thank you for this lesson, and we'll see you next time.